Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Brandi Keeler. I am Assistant Director of Admissions here at the College for Creative Studies, and today I am going to answer all of your admissions questions. So if you all have any questions at all about applying to CCS, about CCS in general, this is to help you prepare for the application process for CCS. And the answer is no. If you are applying as a high school student or a GED student, you are not required to show your ACT or SAT scores to be admitted to CCS. However, if you are an international student who has studied at a institution where the primary language of instruction is not English, you can submit your SAT or ACT scores as a way to show English proficiency. In addition to ACT and SAT scores, we also accept the IELTS tests. We accept Duolingo English tests. So there are a few ways to show your English proficiency if you are an international student. But our traditional students coming from high school who are not international, no, we do not need an SAT or ACT score. We actually, a couple years ago, dissolved our full tuition scholarship. Reason being, we wanted to be able to give more money to more students. So we got rid of our full tuition scholarship, but we've increased the level of merit-based scholarship that our applicants are eligible for. So that's for everyone who's applying. And if you don't already know this about CCS's financial aid, the way that we assess students for merit-based scholarship is once they complete the admissions process. So once a student submits their transcript, their portfolio, and their application form, they're done with the admissions process and we automatically consider them for admission and scholarship. So there's nothing separate that students have to do to be considered for additional scholarships for merit-based. But again, we've increased the amount of merit-based scholarships over the years because we got rid of our full tuition scholarship. Now, there are some unique opportunities with our Dunning Fellows, scholarship, where students who participate in our pre-college summer experience through the competitions that we offer. So we have competitions for sneaker design, for fashion design, and for transportation design through our Dunning Fellowship. Those students have some opportunities for additional scholarships to help cover the cost of CCS. So I'm going to break this answer down for you all. CCS allows students to study and requires students to study 4 years in their major. That means you are taking 4 years of studio classes specific to your area of study, whether that's animation or transportation design or communications design or craft and material studies. You're taking 4 years of studios in your class. In the very first semester, freshman year, you start off in your major. So students who are coming in from a community college will be happy to know that we are a transfer-friendly school. We are on the Phi Theta Kappa's list of transfer-friendly schools. We're on the transfer honor roll. We do take transfer credits. You can come to community college and transfer to CCS. However, when you transfer, it's not an automatic thing that you take 2 years at the community college and then take 2 years at CCS, right? The reason that is because at CCS, like I mentioned earlier, we have those 4 years of studio classes, and not all colleges offer classes that transfer in for those studio slots. So typically we recommend students consider taking their liberal arts requirements or general education classes at a community college if they are needing to do that. Because that can help lessen the load during their time here at CCS, right? So instead of taking, 2 18 credit semesters in a row, they can take a 12 credit semester and then another 12 credit semester because they've knocked out some liberal arts classes. Now, I will say that this scenario, transferring or not, really depends on the college that a student is transferring from, what classes they've already taken in high school that can earn them college credit, like AP, advanced placement, or IB classes. So there are a lot of factors that we consider when advising a student whether or not it's a good idea to transfer or not. Typically, the reasons that we encourage students to transfer is they need to improve their GPA so that they can become admissible, or they're looking to lighten their load and take smaller studio only semesters versus studio and gen eds mixed at CCS. But overall, the best advice I would give to a student who has questions about transferring is talk to our transfer counselors. They can tell you specifically based on the college you're interested in transferring from, specifically based on credit you already have, what the best course of action for you is. There's not a blanket answer, but generally we do like students to come straight into CCS because they're starting off in their major freshman year. That's an excellent question, and I'm actually very glad that you answered that. So on our campus, we have we don't tolerate any hatred, racism, xenophobia, etc. We're very clear about that in our policies at CCS, and we actually have a diversity, equity, and inclusion office on campus that's dedicated to making sure that students aren't only, protected from these forms of discrimination and hatred, but are also sharing their experiences, right? We really heavily value not just diversity, but equity and inclusion at CCS. We believe that, all artistic and creative voices have a place at the table and need to be heard and represented in both our student body and our faculty and staff members. So, for example, a great example of this is recently we actually changed the name of our fine arts major to art practice. The reason being that fine arts gives credence mostly to a way of creating hierarchy within the art world, right? Fine arts mostly speaks about traditional European fine art practice, and it kind of excludes, indigenous art makers, Black, indigenous people of color art makers from the craft disciplines, right? It's not a hierarchy here at CCS when we're talking about having a studio art practice, right? We want all types of art makers to feel that they have a home in our major. So we changed the name from fine arts to art practice to give, credence to all types of art makers, right? That's one small example of many. But our DEI team has done many things like having open office hours for students to come in and talk about their experiences, alumni to come in and talk about their experiences. We've opened it up for faculty and staff to start to brainstorm and think about ways to be more inclusive on campus. And we frequently every year have trainings to help both student, faculty, and staff. I say both, like students are one group, faculty and staff are one group, but we're all one big family. But to have everyone on campus learn about the topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and make sure we're aware, make sure we're staying on the forefront of what's relevant to the people who are joining our campus and our family. So it's important to us, diversity, equity, and inclusion. There are no exams. So we are a test blind school. We do not look at SAT or ACT scores when students are applying to CCS. So you don't have to worry about exams. One thing you also don't have to worry about are letters of recommendation or essays. So our application form, it's pretty simple. You can do it in 10 minutes on your phone. And we don't require, lengthy statements or anything like that. It's really basic information. The bulk of what we're using to make an admissions decision is your 8 to 12 piece portfolio and your GPA from high school, right? We found that the highest indicators of success, what makes a successful student at CCS, are the creativity and potential we see in a student's portfolio and their ability to be a proficient student, right? To study in school and complete assignments. And so GPA shows us that. We found historically that SAT and ACT scores weren't the best indicator of success at our school, right? We know sometimes artists may not be the best test takers, right? Or, people have different learning styles. And so we've seen students who've come in who in the past, when we were requiring test scores, they may not have had the strongest ACT, but they were an amazing artist, a great student, and a great contribution to our community at CCS. So that is why that is not part of our requirements. Yes, right? So the requirements for the 8 to 12 piece portfolio is asking that students show us their strongest work. That means if you've experimented with a lot of mediums, say you've tried watercolor and photography and animation and sculpting, and your sculptures are very weak, they're not your strength. Even if you're applying for crafts, we would not say put that 3D work in your portfolio just to show us that you have it. because your scholarship is based on showing the strongest amount of potential that you have, right? And so we want to see what you are best at in your portfolio. So the creativity helps, right? We want to see how you're thinking about the world. We want to see who you are in your portfolio. That elevates what we think is a great portfolio, but also showing your strongest skill set helps to elevate your portfolio, and that determines part of your scholarship, right? So half is your portfolio, but it also is academics, right? You can't have a stellar, amazing portfolio with the best creativity in the world and, a 1.0 GPA. You won't get in with that, right? We want to also know that you are a good student. So I'll answer this question generally for all students. There are three kind of buckets of classes that everyone takes at CCS. The first bucket is your studio major classes. So classes specific to your major where you're producing artwork in a studio, right? So for animation, that could look like a character animation class or a 3D modeling class, right? The second bucket of classes are your foundation studio classes. So like I mentioned earlier, everyone starts off in their major freshman year, but you're also starting off with some foundation classes to strengthen those technical skills that you start to build in high school or community college. And those classes include things like 2D and 3D design principles and concepts. That includes drawing classes. It could be drawing 1 or drawing 2, depending on your major. It also includes digital fundamentals. So students who, if you haven't tried your hand at Photoshop yet, don't worry. We teach you how to use some of the basic digital tools like Photoshop and Illustrator in your foundation classes. And those classes also help you with basic studio class practices like how to critique work, how to receive criticism, how to evaluate whether a piece of work is effective or not. So that's that second bucket of classes, foundation studios. And then the third bucket of classes is your general education classes or liberal arts. So these are things like history, English, your science requirement, etc. For example, for animation students, you may be taking a literature class like the fairy tale, art, literature, and film from the fairy tale genre, right? Because that may help you with the type of animation you're interested in. Those classes are very specific to artists and designers. You may take a business class for money management techniques for artists and designers, right? But those are your general education requirements, right? So those three buckets are classes that everyone takes to learn specifically what studio classes you'll take or what your liberal art requirements are required. For example, for animation, I know a liberal arts requirement is the history of animation, right? But to see the full list of those on our website for each major, if you click under the academics tab and look at each of the majors, the full curriculum for all of our majors is listed. So you can literally go and see all the classes that students take for the 4 years that they're here at CCS. The answer to this question varies depending on if you are coming from high school or with a GED or if you are a transfer student. So the required GPA for CCS is a 2.5 or higher GPA for our high school students, and for transfer students is a 2.0 or higher. College is a little more difficult, right? That being said, we do have something called conditional admission, where we work with students who are sometimes between the 2.0 and 2.5 range who have a lot of potential in their portfolio for specific majors. It's not offered for every major, but certain majors we do have conditional admission where we work with students to guide you. But in the event that your GPA does not meet the requirements for the major that you're applying to, we work with students, right? Again, we are about potential. We're about helping you on that path, right? And so say you have a 1.8 and you are not admissible to CCS, but you are really passionate about this, you're working really hard on your portfolio, and this is your dream school. We will guide you on classes to take at a community college, right? What classes can help you to grow a admissible GPA so that you can then transfer to CCS. So if you're nervous about GPA, still reach out to an admissions counselor, still start the process to apply, because we can better help you when we know that you need the help, right? So I would say, don't hesitate to reach out if that's a concern of yours. For sure, we have students working across the country and across the world in a variety of companies. Our alumni network is very vast. It's huge. If you didn't know, CCS has been in existence since 1906. We started as the Society of Arts and Crafts. So we've been working on getting graduates out there for over 100 years. So yes, there are alum from our school working in Japan. But if you are interested in studying in another country also while you are a student, we do have study abroad and exchange programs at CCS. And I know that we have some schools in Japan where students can actually study, get some credit for CCS, but also get that cultural experience in another country. But we have students working, in companies across the world. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I know this isn't Japan specific, but Hyundai, Toyota, that's just from transportation as an example. But I know we have plenty of graduates working at companies there, Suzuki, and more. But countries across the world have CCS graduates. And if you're interested in seeing where our alumni are working, under each of the majors on our website, you can see a list of companies where our graduates are working, as well as for some of the majors where students are interning. So you can see companies, again, from across the globe on those lists. There is some. For those who don't know, we are a nonprofit college, right? Our goal is educating students, not earning income. And so beyond educational costs, like to operate the school, we put a lot of our money into scholarships. And so our merit-based scholarship is something that all of our students are eligible for. When I say 98% of students receive scholarship, that includes our international students. So you are eligible for our merit-based scholarship as a international student. So please apply, complete the admissions process so you can be considered for our merit-based scholarship. Obviously, FAFSA is not something that international students can use, but that is something that our students who are here locally can apply for, because we do, in addition to merit-based scholarship, have need-based financial aid. So in addition to the merit-based scholarship, we also have our own tuition grants that we grant that can also add on top of any merit-based scholarship you're awarded, or any external scholarships that you are winning on your own. So our application process has some phases. The most important deadline that I tell students is December 1st. So if you're applying for fall of 2021, December 1st is our early action deadline. And when you complete the admissions process by the early action deadline, you're automatically considered for the highest amount of merit-based scholarship that CCS can award. So when we say the application is due, that means the full admissions process of submitting your transcript, your portfolio, and your application form. So December 1st is early action, which is not early decision. Early decision is something that some schools have where you're committed to the school, you're making a binding commitment to attend that school. That's kind of unfair, right? You have a lot of options out there. You want to explore what college is the best fit for you and your personality and your future. And so early action is simply a way of indicating to CCS that you have interest in our school. From there, you still have up until May 1st to actually make your commitment decision, right? So you have time to explore your options. The second deadline that we have for fall of 2021 is February 1st, which is our priority deadline. And priority just gives students priority seating in their major, and they are still considered for a scholarship, but it's not the highest amount that you're considered for by December 1st. And then after February 1st, we have rolling admission, right? So if you're a little bit late in the game, or you found out about CCS late and you're like, oh, I need to hurry up and finish, you still have some time after February 1st. But again, it's not priority seating in your major, and it's not the highest amount of scholarship. But again, all students, no matter when you complete the admissions process, are automatically considered for scholarship once they complete the admissions process, okay? Not only are there classes, there's a whole major dedicated to film at CCS. We actually have in our entertainment arts department a bachelor's degree specifically for digital film, and that allows students to study all facets of filmmaking, from writing to directing, lighting, shooting, editing, producing. You're working on storyboarding and concepts. And the digital film major helps students who are interested in, going and making live action film, but for a variety of types of filmmaking, right? So it can be everything from narrative filmmaking, which you typically go and see in the movies. You can work on documentary filmmaking, right? Capturing important stories for the world through your camera lens. And we also have alternative forms of filmmaking, like art film, music videos. So yes, you can learn to when you say cinema filmmaking, I'm thinking of narrative filmmaking, but yes, you can study that through our digital film major at CCS. Also, we have minors at CCS, so studio minors, where you can study in any of the or most of our majors and take a minor, right? And so if you are interested, say for example, in majoring in entertainment arts, but you for digital film, but you're interested in commercial making, for example, you want to do your filmmaking through that lens, you can take, for example, a minor in advertising for TV commercial production, right? So there are a lot of options for studying filmmaking techniques at CCS. I'll answer this question two ways, because you can have diversity of medium and then you can also have diversity of concept and theme, right? When it comes to medium, we say always work on your strongest work in your portfolio, right? So again, if you're working on 5 different mediums, but there's one medium that is not your strength, you feel kind of wonky about it, it doesn't represent your voice or your skill set best, don't put that in your portfolio, right? We want you to put your strongest work, right? So in that regard, we want quality over quantity and diversity, right? As it pertains to theme in your portfolio, we don't have a theme requirement for the CCS admissions portfolio, but if you have a topic that you're really passionate about, say someone is really passionate about feminism and women's rights, or you're really passionate about the Black Lives Matter movement, and you have a series of work that talks about a particular topic, that's okay, right? You can have work specific to a theme in your portfolio. Or if you're somebody who your strength is digital art, right? You love digital illustration and you feel that you're best at drawing digitally, you can have a portfolio that's all, specifically digital artwork, right? The only specific requirements that we have for our portfolio outside of showing us your strength is for illustration, transportation design, animation, and game design. For those 4 majors, you need to show at least 5 drawings in your portfolio. Those drawings could be in any medium, and those drawings could be observational or imaginative, but we need to see drawing in that portfolio, right? At least 5 pieces out of the 8 to 12 total. So that's specific, right? We specifically need to see how you draw. Particularly, we're interested in seeing if you understand some of the foundations of drawing, from everything like perspective or form or anatomy or observation, right? We want to see some of those beginning skill sets. But yeah, that's the only thing that's specific. And then the only major that has a major specific portfolio is our concept design major. So for those who aren't familiar, our concept design major at CCS in the entertainment arts department is a very unique major. It's a competitive major at CCS, the only competitive major that we have. And that portfolio requires students to show a very high level of technical skill specific to the concept design realm, right? And concept design is all about visualizing and designing elements for live action movies and game art. And so that portfolio requires that students specifically show their process of design for characters, environment, architecture, and hardware. And hardware includes like weapons, vehicles, tools, etc. So those 4 areas for a story of their choosing. And that could be an imagined story of your own creation, or an existing story, like a folk tale or a fairy tale that already exists. And so for that portfolio, yes, there is very specific artwork that is required. TOEFL is one of the options for international students to showcase their English proficiency. It is not the only one. So if you have, for example, not taken the TOEFL, but you've taken an SAT or ACT, you can submit that for English proficiency. If you've done the IELTS test, you can use that instead of a TOEFL for proficiency. Or if you've done the Duolingo English test and you passed that, you can submit that for English proficiency. So you have 5 different options as an international student to showcase your English proficiency. TOEFL is just one of those options. So if you're nervous about TOEFL or don't feel that you can do that, I would suggest looking into one of the other 4 options for submitting your application, okay? If you're torn between majors, if you're not sure which will be the best area of study for you, we actually have some workshops on our admissions YouTube page where you can learn about each major and how to know if a major is the best fit for you. So we give you some signs to look for in your own life, in your own practice, to see if it's a good fit for you. We also, throughout the month of October and November, have something called Major Insights, which are live Zoom sessions with our department chairs from every one of our majors, talking directly to you and answering your questions about the major. And that's another way of just learning more about the opportunities and seeing if it's a good fit for you. But I'm going to answer this specific question. If someone is an aspiring footwear designer, what is the ideal major for them? It's kind of a couple different answers. We actually have 2 majors at CCS for students interested in a career in footwear design. We have our Fashion Accessories Design program, which is a unique program where students are learning all facets of design, fabrication, and fashion business for the fashion accessories industry. So they're learning how to produce shoes, handbags, leather goods, hardware accessories like buckles and appliques. So for that major, students are learning to hand make shoes, typically, their own unique design, and that can then be mass produced in the industry, right? These are typically the type of shoes that are like high-end, very design and aesthetic focused, right? So high heels, high-end menswear fashion shoes, right? Things like that, as well as sneakers. But then there's also our product design department, where we have a ton of graduates who are working at companies like Adidas, Nike, Reebok, Ling, etc., who are designing footwear, right? They're designing athletic shoes. That major, however, the difference is students who are in product design are always focused on solving a problem for a specific consumer. And students specifically focused on footwear design are solving the problem for the user of that shoe, right? So, for example, if it's an athlete that needs more endurance, they're thinking about not just aesthetics, but also the form and function of that shoe that would help that athlete. So a great example, Girsi Eugene is one of our product design graduates who designed Usain Bolt's running shoes for the past Olympics when he was working at Puma. And so he had to think about, okay, if an athlete is running, if Usain Bolt is trying to win, a track meet at the Olympics, what design aesthetic met with the functionality and form of that shoe will help him to that end goal, right? And so they're actually solving a problem by designing that shoe. So the question for you is then to ask, okay, am I interested in, aesthetics, brand, fashion, or am I interested in solving problems and designing amazing footwear, right? That can sort of help you, right? Aesthetics, answering problems. Aesthetics, form, function, right? So, but again, there's more information about each of these in our major insight events, as well as our YouTube channel. So hopefully that gives you a good start to answering that question. In general, also, if you need help with talking through these options, say you watch the content and you're still like, I love both, I'm still torn, talk to an admissions counselor, right? Set up a one-on-one appointment with the admissions team here at CCS. We'd love to talk more with you about your career goals, about your creative dreams, and helping you make the best choice possible, okay? So please connect with us. The answer is no. I know there are a lot of students who may be nervous about submitting their portfolio. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, I graduated from CCS and my portfolio didn't look like half the portfolios on the website either. I was really nervous about applying. But that's what our admissions team is for. They actually help you. They look at your work informally first, right? So you reach out to admissions, show them your work, and they can give you feedback on what your strengths are, what to consider strengthening, and how to grow your skill sets. And we let you know if you're nervous, we'll let you know on the spot if your work is admissible or not, and how to become admissible if you are not, right? So I wouldn't say, keep your artwork to your chest and be nervous. I would say show us, because we can help you. Right? Our goal is to make sure you're as best prepared for admission and for scholarships as possible. So don't be concerned. Show us your work. We can actually help, right? We can provide resources if you need them. Also, I'll say the examples on our portfolio are some of our stronger applicants, right? We have a range of talent that we see. We have a range of passion that we see in portfolios, right? Again, your admission decision is based on your GPA, your academic success, as well as your portfolio. So we have some students who maybe self-taught, maybe didn't have an art class in high school, but who are like amazing, stellar academic students, right? We know that we can teach them and we can work with them and they can grow those skill sets. So we love to work with you. If you're nervous about submitting your portfolio, don't be. Just talk to us about it. Don't hide from us. We want to help. actually several ways that people can submit a portfolio for admission to CCS. But yeah, the first way to submit your portfolio is to upload it to ccs.slideroom.com. That's it. Yeah, ccs.slideroom.com. So you can upload your work to SlideRoom. You pay a $10 fee that's assessed by SlideRoom, not us, and then your work can be reviewed there. But you can also have your work reviewed in person through Zoom, because it's a pandemic right now. We can look at your work through Zoom, and if your portfolio is admissible in an in-person review, that can be used for the admissions process. And we also are participating throughout the fall in National Portfolio Day. So if you attend a National Portfolio Day and your work is reviewed there and is admissible, it can be used towards your application process. So there are several ways to submit your work. But you can also, depending on your admissions counselor, just send your work, right? Whether it's text or email. I know I have students who send their portfolios via Instagram. And if you're showing me 8 to 12 pieces of work and it's admissible, we can use that for the admissions process. Really, it's about us being able to see your work in a high enough quality where we can assess what your skill level is, right? And assess that creativity and passion. Another thing to note, like I mentioned earlier, our concept design major is that a special competitive major. That is the major that requires that your portfolio is submitted to SlideRoom. So you cannot submit your portfolio any other way besides SlideRoom if you're interested in concept design. But for all the other majors, just send us your work so we can look at it. That's the best way to submit it, is to have it in. All right, so if you are drawing things, the first thing you want to think about is, okay, observation or imagination, right? You want to potentially show the world that exists in your head, or you want to look at things in your real life and draw those from observation. When doing observational drawing, it's better to observe from real life than it is from photo reference. But if you don't have access in real life to the things you want to draw, maybe you want to draw a horse and you don't have access to that, photo reference from the internet can help. However, don't draw photos of celebrities, okay? We want to see originality in your portfolio. We want to see things that are unique to your world and your experience in your portfolio. So draw yourself, do a self-portrait, draw someone you love or a friend, right? I can't tell you how many pictures of BTS and K-pop stars I've seen in portfolios. That's not original, folks. Everyone loves them, right? So you want to make sure you're drawing things that not everyone else will have in their portfolio. And celebrities, everyone has access to them, right? Through photos online. So don't draw celebrities. Another thing is, when you're drawing from imagination, when you're drawing characters, try and build the full world for those characters, right? Think about the foreground, middle ground, and background of the world that they're existing in. Don't draw your characters in the middle of a white page, right? That's a pro tip. Also, if you are drawing characters, again, originality, creativity. We don't want to see fan art or other people's characters in your portfolio. We don't want to see anime characters in your portfolio, right? Draw your own characters, right? Draw your own cartoon style in your portfolio if you're going to draw things. And lastly, you want to think about the full composition, the full frame of your canvas or sketchbook page or paper. And so, again, nothing flowing in the middle of a white page. Even if you're drawing something that's abstract, think about the full composition, right? So those are some tips to help with the drawing portfolio, but we do have more extensive tips and resources on our website. On the admissions requirements page, we have a whole page dedicated to portfolio with examples of work, some mock assignments. If you don't have enough work and you need some ideas for assignments, there's some listed on our website. But hopefully those are some tips for what to draw for your portfolio. Draw what you love, draw what you're passionate about, right? And make it unique and original to you. One last thing, I'll say this as well. We have a lot of students who are taking art classes, right? And you're drawing the assignments in those art classes and you want to put those in your portfolio. That's great if they show technical skill, but sometimes some of those traditional assignments, like drawing a still life or figure studies, they may not allow you to put as much creativity in that work, right? So you are encouraged to do things outside of your classroom assignments. I always tell students, looking at a well-drawn bowl of fruit shows technical skill, but there is no creativity there, right? But if you take that bowl of fruit and add your own imagined characters to it, right? Or you set up a still life of your favorite objects from your childhood, that's more interesting, right? Make even your observational drawings something that are unique to you and your passions, okay? would say you want to think about the way that you are considering all aspects of photography in your photos that you're shooting, right? So are you paying attention to lighting, right? Are you paying attention to focal point and the actual aperture, right? So focusing, are things in the foreground in focus and things in the background out of focus? Is your photo like high quality? Is it pixelated? We don't want pixelated photos in your portfolio, right? But from a content perspective, I tell students you want to think about capturing an image that no one else can capture. Again, similar to drawing celebrities offline, there are some photos that everyone tries to submit in their portfolio and everyone has access to them, so they're not as original. For example, sunsets, sunrises, your pets, leaves on the ground. I don't know why, but those are common things that we see in photo portfolios. Not the most unique, right? Think about maybe setting up your own photo shoot, right? Modeling some friends or, some objects that you want to shoot. Think about a theme or a message that you want to communicate and then try to capture that with a photo, right? So if you want to say, for example, I'm trying to think of a theme off the top of my head. Black Lives Matter comes to me because that's something I'm passionate about. But if you want to say Black Lives Matter, is there a way that you can capture that through a photo without using language, right? Or is there a way to capture a self-portrait of yourself without you even being in the photograph, right? What elements around the world or around your surroundings can tell someone about you with a photo, right? Think creatively about the subject that you're capturing, right? Versus just trying to capture something you see in the world that's beautiful. Create an image that is engaging and interesting to you. And lastly, I would say think about angles. I think a lot of students, they walk around the world with their camera like this, but what about a bird's eye view or ant's eye view? Crouch, get under some things, really change your positionality, and play with position and lighting, and you're more likely to create some dynamic and interesting photos for your photography portfolio. So yes, there are universities that offer art classes and art programs, right? At CCS and any accredited art college, we are accredited by the ACAD Association. But if you're studying at an art school, the majority of your curriculum is actually going to be studio art classes. We actually, in order to receive our accreditation, have to require so many studio hours of classes per class, right? So you're spending several hours in the studio actually making work, right? So at CCS, for example, 2/3 of your classes are studio art classes. There are only 42 credits required in the gen eds, versus at a typical university, that's kind of flipped, right? The majority of your classes are those general education and liberal arts classes, and then you're taking maybe 1/3 of studio classes, right? So it's not as specialized, not as focused. Another benefit of going to an art school versus a university is specifically to CCS, is the industry connections, right? Like I mentioned earlier, we have over 100 years of alumni in the industry. So our career development office helps students pair with internship opportunities, sponsored studio projects where they're in class working with actual companies on research assignments and oftentimes getting paid for their art-based assignments, right? We have industry day where companies are coming to campus looking at student work to recruit. Those connections with art colleges are stronger because companies know the level of talent and skill sets and have, long-standing relationships with art universities. So when you think about going to a larger college, there's tons of majors from tons of industries. So the amount of industry connections specific to art may be limited because they have to maintain industry connections with a ton of industries, versus an art school, all of our connections are relevant to your field of study, right? And so that's something that is unique to art and design school. I would say one last thing that's unique to art school, and I can speak to this not only from working at the school, but just my personal experience being a student when I was attending CCS, is the community, right? So at an art school, you are surrounded by other artists, passionate, creative people, right? I don't know about you all, but some artists don't have the best high school experience, right? They may have been ostracized, or they're the art nerds and they're not the popular kids. At art school, we are all art nerds, right? We are all artists and designers and creative thinkers. We're kind of quirky and weird, and we find that we see ourselves reflected in the student community here, right? We don't have sports at our school, which is a difference from if you want to go join a sports team, maybe you want to consider a big university. But if you want to join a video game team, right, for your extracurricular, or, play Dungeons and Dragons with some friends, or, join a club of friends who just want to sketch on the weekends. That's the type of community you're joining at an art college, right? You're joining a community of other dedicated artists, and the level of talent that you see at art college is typically really strong, right? Because these are the top of the top artists and designers in the world. And so your level of inspiration and motivation by looking at your peers who are coming from across the country and across the world who are dedicated artists, that motivates you and inspires you versus, at a university art class. And I'm not going to say what university, but I have a cousin who goes to a state school and she's studying design there. And she was saying, like, there are kids in my art class who don't care about art, right? They're just taking it as an elective, as a blow-off class. Versus here, everyone is passionate about their art classes because that's what we're here to study. So those are a few differences to consider between art college and a large state school. And obviously, art colleges come in a variety of sizes. At CCS, we are a private school, and we are a really small school. I'm trying to close out this question. We're a really small school. So the average classroom size is about 10 students per faculty member. So you're getting a lot of one-on-one attention in your classroom setting. You actually know your professors. At a university, depending on the size of the school, you may be in a lecture class of 200 students, right? We don't have that at CCS. So size is another thing that's a bit different between us and a large university or state school. So some students are like, do I need to set up a website? Do I need to make a PDF? Do I need to make a Google slide? And the answer is no. We don't have a requirement except for concept design, which I talked about earlier. For the general admissions requirements, you don't have to do like a fancy presentation. If you do, great. That shows professionalism and can elevate the look and feel of your portfolio. But really, it's just submitting the 8 to 12 pieces. Now, I will say if a student has, for example, you're a photography student and you have 3 photos that came from the same series and you want to submit those as a triptych versus 3 pieces taking up space in your portfolio, you can make multiple page PDFs or, arrange artwork that's related into one piece, right? So you can do that. You're allowed to do that, but there's no specific requirement. So at art school, specifically at CCS, our schedule actually varies depending on the classes you have. So each of our studio classes per week, so for example, say you're taking your foundation drawing class, that studio class would have 6 hours of study in classroom time per week, right? So our classes are set up in a way where you may take a class 3 hours on Monday and 3 hours on Wednesday, or 3 hours on Tuesday and 3 hours on Thursday, or 3 hours in the morning on Friday with a lunch break, and then 3 hours in the afternoon on Friday, right? So the 6 hours are broken up between the days of the week. So the amount of time that you're in classes a day actually varies, right? Some students may have a Tuesday where they have no classes, right? So it really depends on your schedule and how you set it up. But we have our first class of the day starts around 8:30 in the morning. And our last class at night ends at 10 p.m. So there's like 4 blocks of time, sort of 8 to 11. There's an afternoon class, there's a 4 to 7 class, and then there's a 7 to 10 p.m. class. So there's 4 buckets of time that students can potentially study. So if you're not a morning person, you may sign up for some more afternoon and night classes, and then your schedule is not in the morning. So it really depends on your classes that you're taking. And our academic advisors do work with students, specifically our incoming students who are freshmen. They work with you to set your schedule up. So if you're nervous about, applying and then having to figure out your schedule, don't be. Our academic advisors actually help with our incoming freshmen setting up their schedule. Would you need to start working on your portfolio now? Yes. If you are a freshman in high school, yes. Right? Your portfolio is showcasing your creativity and skill. And that's not something that you just start on in senior year, right? You may show your most recent work in, maybe the last year or 2 in your portfolio, but to grow those skill sets and grow that talent, you need to be working on artwork as much as possible. So as a junior, yes, you're going to start working on your portfolio, working on those skill sets, working on those pieces, because that can help you with that informal review, right? So as a junior, you can have some work now that you can do an informal review for, and that will give the admissions counselor something to talk to you about, something to give you feedback on. So even if those specific pieces aren't what you're submitting for your final portfolio, we can help you with what you need to grow to work on for your final portfolio, right? So yes, you're always working on your portfolio as a artist. Yes, right? If you have some strong work that you've done from a dual enrollment class with CCS, we highly encourage you to put that in your portfolio, because it showcases the skill sets that you would actually be taking, if you had to take that class, which you would get out of it because you're dual enrolled, you're saving some time and money, but you would put that in your portfolio to showcase your talent and skill set. Yeah, you're most certainly welcome to do that. And when I mentioned earlier that we want to see what you're working on outside of your classroom setting, that's not to say that you can't put class artwork in your portfolio, right? If your classroom artwork shows your talent and your creativity, put that in there. If you are interested in dual enrollment, which is for students here in Michigan, where they can take classes at CCS for a really reduced cost, and that can count towards their foundation requirements at CCS. You simply would go to our website, look at the academics tab under pre-college and continuing studies. There's a tab there where you can learn more about our dual enrollment classes, but you can also learn about other pre-college classes that we offer, like our pre-college summer experience, where you can study with a specific major anywhere from freshman to senior year while you're in high school and learn some college level skills, build your portfolio that way. We also have pre-portfolio day workshops coming up here in November, where you can pay $25 to take a CCS workshop and build some work for your portfolio. And then we have a host of other classes. So visit ccsclasses.com if you want to see the list of pre-college classes that we offer. But for dual enrollment, definitely check that tab out on our website. If you aren't already on our mailing list, go to collegeforcreativestudies.edu, click request info or get info, and fill out that form. That's how you can find out information about our upcoming events. You can sign up for reviews. It gets you connected to an admissions counselor, so I would definitely say do that first. But if you have some general questions that you want to send us and get them answered right away, you can email us at admissions, admissions, at collegeforcreativestudies.edu. You can also call our office at 313-664-7425. And on our website, if you click the admissions overall button, there is a tab called, I think it's Contact Us. And it has an opportunity where you can schedule a Zoom portfolio review with an admissions counselor, or a Zoom counseling appointment with an admissions counselor. So even if you don't know who your admissions counselor is, you can schedule a general admissions counselor overview and just talk to us and get your questions answered in depth. So definitely check out those resources if you have more questions. Also, if you're interested in talking to me more, and because I interview alumni every week here on Instagram, we do a lot of different events on Instagram Live. On my channel, you can follow me at BK4CCS. So at BK4CCS. I do a lot of events there if you want to see more IG Live content, because you like being here on Instagram. And then, as I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in talking to current students, make sure to follow at CCS_connect. That's how you can connect with our current amazing student ambassadors to ask questions about the student experience here at CCS. We do have campus housing. So if you're looking to live on campus at CCS, we actually have two different dorm buildings. One is the Art Center building, which is on our Ford side of campus, the Ford campus. And then we also have a second building that's a mile north from the Ford campus, called the Alfred A. Topman Center of Design, and there are dorms in that building as well. We have both apartment and loft style dormitories. Our dorms are, what I hear from most students and my own experience living in them, very nice dorms. For example, our apartment style dorms in the ACB, say you were living in a 6-person suite, you'd have 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, and a private dining room, like living room area in your suite. The Wi-Fi is provided. You have heating and cooling. You have all the furniture provided, right? And so we have really nice housing facilities, which you can see by touring us in person or virtually, if you're interested in staying on campus. And we do have meal plans available. So if you are an international student coming who wants to move to Detroit for CCS, or if you're just local and you want the college experience, living in a dorm, you can get that at CCS.